Hey everybody, happy week before spring break. This week we are going to be diving a little bit into Easter. Now, Easter is coming up on Sunday, which will be while we're out of school and all that. But we're going to talk a little bit about what Easter is, how it got started, what some of the symbols are of it, and all that stuff. However, most of what we're going to focus on are symbols and different things that you might see with Easter associated with Easter. And of course, what they mean, why they came to be part of Easter. Why do we think of this item when we think of Easter? So this week's going to be kind of a look into traditions and symbols of Easter. And of course, we know traditions are things that people do or remember or talk about or participate in that they do over a certain time, maybe every year, maybe whenever they get together with their family, maybe for certain holidays. We've talked about tradition, especially I remember back at Christmas, we talked about different traditions of giving gifts and having a Christmas tree. We've talked about traditions with Halloween where people dress up in costumes. Well, we're going to talk about some traditions with Easter later in the week, but we're also going to talk about some symbols and some images and imagery that goes with Easter. That's what we'll be talking about earlier in the week. So I want you to think, while I switch this over, I want you to take a second and think about, and actually, you know what? Probably won't even take long enough for you to think about. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about some symbols of Easter. Let me get this slideshow big enough for you to see. So some symbols of Easter. Now, I want you to take some time. I'm going to give you about a minute or so. I want you to think of Easter. I know some people may celebrate it more than others, so I totally get that. But I do want you to take a second and think of Easter. Think of some things that you do. Think of things that you see. Maybe if you've been in a store, maybe some things that you've seen. I'm going to give you, let me check my timer. Yep, about 30 more seconds to think about that. So what were some things you thought of? Let's see. I'm going to just go to the next page, and I've just put 4 pictures on of things that most people, at least you might think, I'm sure you thought of at least one of these things. So let's go. Well, if I can get it to go to the next, there we go. So here are some items. I'm sure some of these you probably thought of. If you didn't think of them all, I'm sure you at least thought of 1 or 2 of them. We'll start over here on the right side. We have that bunny, the Easter bunny. We got some eggs that have been colored and dyed. We've got an Easter basket full of all kind of good looking treats and things. And then we have some crosses down here on the left side. Now, what we're going to do throughout this week is talk about kind of where each of these things come into play when we talk about Easter. We won't go too in depth, but we will discuss them. So why do we associate? Remember, associate means that we kind of think of them going together. Why do we associate certain items and images with Easter? So it all comes down to what those items mean and images mean to people. I'm going to kind of emphasize that, what those images, those items and images mean to people. So think about, if you go back to the page that we were just on over here. Give me just 1 second. Hopefully go back and, all right. So each of these images or pictures or things might give you different ideas. So think for a second about the Easter bunny right here. Some of you may think of the Easter bunny as somebody that brings you treats or brings you candy or eggs. Some of you might just think of a bunny and you see bunnies as decorations for Easter. If you go over here to the left side with the cross, some of you may associate that with going to church or going to a different type of religious service. Some of you may associate that with your religion or what your beliefs are. So there are different items and images that people think of when they think of certain items and images. Let me go ahead. So again, it comes down to what that means to people. So some people, a certain item may be way more important to them than it might be to somebody else. Doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean anything's different. It just means that maybe something is more important to you than it might be to me, or something's more important to me than it might be to you. It's just the way we are. And it also comes from tradition. Now, I just mentioned a minute ago that tradition is basically when you have a tradition, it's something that you or somebody does for a reason. You might do something every year at Christmas. It might be a tradition in your family that you have a certain meal together. That would be a tradition. A tradition might be that you, for your birthday, go eat pizza. Again, I'm making these up, but those might be traditions that you have. So a tradition is something people do over time for a reason. Sometimes that reason is as simple as we like to do this. Sometimes it might be more complicated. It might be, going back to that, the other pictures, it might be a religious belief. So those traditions are things that people do to take part in their religion or their beliefs. So today, tomorrow, and Thursday, here's where we're going with this. Today, we're going to talk about the Easter Bunny and the Easter basket. That's something we've all seen. We've probably all gotten an Easter basket or some Easter treats at some point. Tomorrow, we're really going to talk about the Easter egg. We're going to go really deep into the Easter egg. Then Thursday, we're going to talk about church and family traditions. Now, I know some of you go to church all the time. Some of you may not go to church at all. So I'm going to mention it, but I'm not going to go very deep into it. Just because, like I said, I know some of you may go all the time. Some of you may not go at all. And of course, if that's how your family is, if that's how your family tradition is, that's okay. We're just going to talk about it. And again, family traditions we'll talk about because some families get together, some families don't. We'll get more into that Thursday. So let's focus on today, the Easter Bunny and the Easter basket. So the Easter Bunny. So here's the history of the Easter Bunny. I thought this was kind of cool. It's believed that bunnies became kind of associated. Remember, associated means you're kind of linking them together with Easter in the 19th century. So like in the 1800s. So we're going back, we're going back almost 200 years ago, well over 100 years ago in most cases. So in the springtime, we've talked about this a little bit. In the springtime, many baby animals are born, like baby ducklings, chickens, rabbit. Another thing that's born a lot in the springtime is baby rabbits. So people started kind of thinking of bunnies as kind of a symbol of new life and starting over. Remember, we talked about how spring is a time that people kind of think of things starting over, things, flowers blooming again, animals being born. The symbol of new life is kind of I guess you'd say a theme that's going to go through all of our things we talk about with Easter. So when we talk about the bunny, the eggs, the treats, the religious aspects, all of that's going to have to do with new life. And we'll just touch on all those as we go. And of course, just starting over. We're starting over. But why does the Easter Bunny bring baskets, treats, eggs? Think for a second, why do you think the Easter Bunny would do that? Why do we think of the Easter Bunny bringing us treats and baskets and things like that? So there might be some really good reasons that you thought of. I want you to hold on to those thoughts because that's going to be part of your learning check. So the Easter basket. Now, some of us might get Easter baskets. Some of us may not. And again, this all comes down to, what your family does. Different families do different things. But why, even though rabbits don't lay eggs, we know rabbits don't lay eggs. Why? They are mammals. Mammals don't lay eggs. Bringing eggs to good children became kind of a tradition. I think it said in Germany, which is the country in Europe. It kind of became a tradition that the bunny would bring eggs, these colorful eggs, to kids that had been good. We talk about how Santa brings gifts to kids that have been good. Kind of the same kind of concept of the Easter bunny would bring an egg that was colorful, painted, dyed, however it looked, to kids that had been good. And that also kind of became a symbol of new life, but more importantly, in this case, giving to others. So giving of yourself to others, giving gifts to others, being charitable, basically is kind of where that came from. And the tradition kind of evolved, which means it's changed from eggs to, candy and treats and baskets for well-behaved children. I'm sure most of you probably aren't getting eggs in a basket. If you get an Easter basket, you probably are getting things like candy or maybe some toys, things like that. And you can see that in these pictures here, like where the bottom picture over here, they got some treats. It looks like mostly just some candy and chips and things. But this one looks like it's got some toys in there, and that one looks like it may just be candy. So I just want to review really quickly what the rest of this week's going to look like. Today we did the Easter bunny and Easter basket. There wasn't a whole lot of information on it. It kind of is just a tradition. It's something we think of when we think of Easter. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the Easter egg. The egg really seemed to be a major symbol of Easter. So we'll actually be spending all of tomorrow talking about the Easter egg. And then Thursday, we'll talk about church and family traditions. Again, we'll talk about things that maybe your family might do or other families might do on Easter, such as getting together, going to church, eating a meal together, doing egg hunts, things like that. So that will be Thursday. So today, of course, was the Easter bunny and the Easter basket. So from here, you have a short little learning check. I want you to go take on it. And I do ask a couple questions that are your opinion, meaning there's no wrong answer except not answering. So if I ask your opinion on, and I'll go ahead and give you a sneak peek now, I'll ask you, why do you think the Easter bunny would bring something to well-behaved kids? What would be a good reason for that? I want you just to think about that. And of course, the only wrong answer would be no answer because that's an opinion question. There will be some questions that are going to have correct answers. So if you need to come back and watch this video, you are welcome to do that. Good luck. And I can't wait for the rest of the week to talk about the Easter egg and all the other traditions. Have a great rest of your day.